This video was brought to you by Boomer Fuel. So this is part 2 of my end of season review. Please feel free to check out my part 1 video to recap where we left off. We're going to pick up where we left off, which was dissecting the fateful time period of the 27th of December to the 7th of March, which completely derailed our season, to determine what went wrong in my opinion. I hope you enjoy it as well as the other videos I've posted so far. Please feel free to like and subscribe if you do. I am a new channel at this point, so any and all traffic is very much appreciated, and I will be posting regularly about all things Liverpool, so please feel free to tell me what a spoon I am for ruining your day with my frightening voice and opinions. So let's get back to the video. Enjoy. Any run of poor form will cause a dip in morale, but at clubs like Liverpool, Man United and the like, it is really to the scale that we saw during these 14 games. Something else was clearly affecting the squad.
There's something strange at work.
Putting aside the injuries and defeats, Jurgen Klopp lost his mum on January 19th, and that preceded our worst run of form during the entire campaign. We lost 7 out of 10 games following Mrs. Klopp's passing, including 5 in a row. A manager who's best known for his infectious enthusiasm, suffering such a devastating blow to his personal life, and as is the unfortunate case of the COVID crisis, not being allowed to go home to see his family, attend a funeral, bury his mum and so on, clearly wouldn't have been able to be operating at his best. The man had to suffer privately, and there is no doubt that contributed during this period. Now I know there's going to be plenty out there saying, well, he's not the only one who suffered that way during COVID, did he? I agree, but I'm explaining this in terms of the effect it had on Liverpool Football Club's season. He is someone who is in charge of a group, a leader who has based his managerial career on his infectious enthusiasm. Now he's supposed to maintain that level of enthusiasm and lead an already battered and injury-ravaged squad after just losing his mark.
Don't give me excuses, give me results!
At best, and I'll be generous here, the players will have known any positivity and enthusiasm he was showing was him putting on a brave face, and that deep down the man was suffering, and that's me being generous. I have no doubt in my mind that there will have been private moments in training where he either came to work tired through a lack of sleep, his emotions would have got the better of him when things didn't go his way, he wasn't as focused as he probably would have normally been.
You will learn to obey me, follow protocol, and stay focused at all times.
He's a human being at the end of the day, a human being who just lost his mark and wasn't allowed to be with his family, or be at the funeral, burial, or even have a bit of time off, for fuck's sake. And it's also worth mentioning that Alisson also lost his dad during this time period in February, dealing a further blow to the squad. And I say further blow to the squad because on top of everything else, you have the shadow of death hanging over the dressing room with a grieving manager and goalkeeper in the same room. Morale was definitely battered during this time period and cannot be ignored as a contributing factor. People have blamed FSG this season for not investing sufficiently in the squad, both in the summer and then again in January, and I'm going to cover more of that in a bit, but for now I'm focusing on the 14 games in the time period of late December to early March, and why the January transfer window didn't save our season basically. First of all, one criticism I've been hearing since the first game Van Dijk played for us is how reliant we now are on him.
Fortunately, I am mighty.
Before he arrived, our defence was leaky to the point of parody, but since he's arrived, we've had arguably the best defence in the league. Now obviously Alisson deserves a huge amount of credit for this upsurge too, but there's no doubt that we have the best centre-back in world football right now. And we all knew if he ever does get injured, we are going to have a big problem, and we've been panicking about it ever since. This was an accident waiting to happen and something we should have addressed long before the January transfer window.
Earth, will you please get off my back? At the box! Why are you always hassling me? I hear the box ticking. I'll get to it eventually!
And I remember when he first got injured against our darling neighbours, I remember feeling there was somewhat of a silver lining over this situation because now Liverpool had to address this issue. But over this last year or so, I found myself wondering, who could we realistically sign? Who was out there not already playing for a top European club who was going to fill the void of Van Dijk? It's been no secret that United have had issues of their own at centre-back, and many Liverpool and United fans have always been hopeful of signing the obvious choice of Napoli's Koulibaly, arguably the next best centre-back in the world after Van Dijk. I mean, he fits the bill, he's world-class, he's proven at Champions League level, and he's not already at an elite club, which means he can be tempted to leave. So what's the problem?
What's the matter with you?
His age. At the time of writing, he's just 3 weeks away from turning 30, and as such, he does not justify the price tag. A price tag that Napoli value at upwards of £90 million. All for a player with no sell-on value and will probably only give us 1 or 2 of his best years. We all know how much of a wizard Michael Edwards is in negotiations, but even he can't bring the price tag down for such a talent as Koulibaly. Not when we were obviously in such a desperate state for centre-backs, and a wealthier and even more desperate club like Man United are also sniffing around him. We can't get drawn into a bidding war with Man United during the height of COVID, especially not for someone who might only end up giving us a year or 2 of top-class service, service. We just won't have enough money for other transfers, basically. Fucking shame though. Can you imagine how sick that defence would have been? Alisson in goal, Koulibaly and Van Dijk at centre-back, Andy Robertson on left-back, Trent on right-back. I mean, that's going to be one of the fucking best defences the Premier League's ever seen if it could have happened. So beyond Koulibaly, we have to take a look at who actually was available during the January transfer window and who actually made a move. I took the time, a long fucking time, to look through all of the top 5 European leagues, Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, League One and the Bundesliga, to see which centre-backs actually made a transfer into these leagues during the January transfer window. And as you can see, not one is anywhere close to being called a marquee signing. In fact, from my research, the most expensive centre-back purchased in all of Europe's top 5 leagues this January was our signing of Ben Davies for a whopping 1.67 million. And the most valuable player who made a loan or a transfer was Ozan Kabak. So that just goes to show Liverpool really did choose the best possible options at centre-back that were actually available during January. So 21 clubs from the top 5 European leagues were committed to signing a centre-back during the January transfer window, including ourselves, Arsenal, Milan, Schalke, Valencia and Lazio. And that's not including Man United, who are also desperate for a top centre-back, but like Liverpool failed to sign one. No offence to Ben Davies and Kabak, of course. So no one's going to convince me not a single club in Europe's top 5 leagues did their homework at all, and all failed to pull off a coup. So yeah, sorry to all those who want to blame FSG for not signing anybody. Look, there really was no one available. In fact, this transfer window was so pitiful. TalkSport reported that the entire Premier League combined spent less money during this transfer window than Liverpool spent on Van Dijk in January 2018. So, yet again, we have another contributing factor in Liverpool's dismal run of form between late December and early March, in that we could not buy adequate reinforcements because they simply weren't available. Now, not that we don't have issues with FSG, and believe me, I'm happy to go into that in a future video because they are numerous. I call the blame most Liverpool fans attributed to FSG during this time period is mostly down to a theory I have called in the heat of defeat. And basically what that means is right after a defeat, passions are high, frustrations need to be vented, and we all need someone to blame. It's just the way we are as fans to need to let some steam off and vent. So we all go down the pub or on social media and we just let it all out. And unless it's been an obvious personal error from a below par performer like Karius was in the 2018 Champions League final, the person who ultimately bear the brunt is going to be the least popular person at the club, which can sometimes be the manager, but due to the obvious greed circulating around football, it usually results in it being the chairman if fans feel he's not invested as much as they want him to. Now, I know I probably shouldn't say this as a new channel trying to get subscribers.
Don't try it.
But I've just not agreed with those Liverpool fans blaming the board for this season being so below par. I mean, even if they did invest heavily in January to placate those fans, I feel I have proved there was no guarantee that it had been spent well. If the players aren't available, they just simply aren't available, no matter how much money you want to spend. I mean, do you remember back to the Van Dijk saga? We couldn't get him in the summer. Now, if that were the case during Rafa's tenure at the club, we'd have been less patient, acted faster and gone out for our second or third choice. I mean, do you remember when we bought Glenn Johnson and Robbie Keane when he actually wanted the likes of David Villa and Dani Alves? And I'm sure the likes of, like, Jermaine Pennant, Mark Gonzalez and Craig Bellamy were also like his second or third choice. I mean, they weren't bad players by any chance, but I mean, come on, Dani Alves, David Villa, I mean, you're talking premium players and then settling for just, good standard, solid Premier League players instead. There's no comparison there. And that's why, in my opinion, during that time period, we kept falling short of Man United and Chelsea, who were buying premium, whereas we were much less patient and settling for second or third best options. Now, with the Van Dijk saga, though, we were patient. We couldn't get him in the summer, but we were patient. We suffered 6 months of a shoddy defence, and then we finally got our man in January. And now, who remembers that 6 months waiting period now, where fan frustrations were almost exactly the same as they are today? No one.
See? No problem.
Don't move.
Do you have a plan B?
And that's because we were patient. We suffered 6 months of shit, didn't win anything that year, but look what happened the next 3 years. Champions League finals, winning the Champions League, winning the league. That's what you get for being patient and buying premium. Short-term pain for long-term gain. Now, I know the circumstances are different this time around, but I bring this up because at the time of posting, we've already made our first summer signing of Ibrahima Konate, who's obviously been identified as a priority signing. And as much as I'd love for this video to come back to bite me in the ass for saying this, not a lot of people seem particularly overjoyed by this transfer.
Yes. Well, forgive me for not leaping for joy. Bad back, you know.
I mean, look, we have just spent £36 million on a defender. I'm not saying he's bad, but 36 million isn't exactly the marquee figure that it used to be. He's also been injury prone the last couple of seasons, apparently, which many private journalists on social media have been pointing out. This feels less like a Van Dijk style signing and more of an upgrade on Ozan Kabak, who looks like he hasn't made the cut. If there are other Van Dijks available out there, do you really think Konate would be the priority we acted so fast on? Now, this is why this saga is a bit different to the Van Dijk saga, in my opinion, because There's really no other Van Dijks out there that we can be patient for. I have no doubt that we have signed the best possible option in centre-back who's available during this window. Time may tell, someone else might sign a better centre-back, but if there was better, I'm sure Liverpool would have pressed ahead to get them after the season we've just suffered. This is why I think FSG facing most of the blame for this season has come down to heat of defeat venting. We've been pissed off and we've lashed out, needing someone to blame, plain and simple. I mean, look, if there are better centre-backs out there than Konate that we should be buying, by all means leave a comment below, I'll have a look. And yes, look, what really didn't help FSG's case this season was that sudden but brief distraction to the entire season that went something along the lines of...
Just then.
Well, it appears this proposal of a European Super League, which poses an existential threat to football as we know it, is going ahead.
So statements leading European football clubs announce new Super League competition. It says 12 of Europe's leading football clubs have today come together to announce they have agreed to establish a new midweek competition, the Super League, governed by its founding clubs.
I'm disgusted, absolutely disgusted.
This is, for me, a war on football.
It's criminal. It's a criminal act against football fans in this country.
I think supporters up and down this country can stop this. I really do believe it.
We have to now mobilise, organise.
For Super League! For Super League!
One debt to society later.
JP Morgan became the latest partner of the European Super League to apologise today.
I want to apologize to all the fan supporters of Liverpool Football Club for the disruption I caused over the past 48 hours.
We're sorry.
The Glazer family have now apologised to the Manchester United fans, saying that they got it wrong.
Sorry.
More news coming out now. We are hearing reports that Ed Woodward has resigned as the chairman of Manchester United.
In terms of what Joel Glazer said, he said sorry more than once.
We're sorry.
Doesn't it also mean Mr. Abramovich as well? We're not going to hear from him himself. We never do. But he should have the decency to come out and apologise for once in his life, to actually say sorry.
Sorry.
I'll finish off about FSG by saying they are facing a big summer, but also they have an opportunity to put their money where their mouths are and essentially buy back the fans' trust by investing heavily to prove that they are committed to do their bit for Liverpool Football Club. I think deep down most Liverpool fans are more intelligent than to just blame everything on FSG, because I do remember asking a few Liverpool fans, who would you sign in regards to centre-back, and I very rarely got a consistent view aside from Koulibaly, who I doubt will go for. But also, there is a lot of anger surrounding the people who run football clubs at the minute, with regards to greed, and that is, again, it's not helping any of them that they keep making stupid moves like this, and they're just leaving themselves wide open to be the scapegoats. So yeah, FSG need to quietly but positively invest in Liverpool to kind of end this saga that Liverpool fans have against them. So what was Liverpool's primary reason for having such a horrendous run of form between December 27th and March 7th? The answer is there wasn't one. Not a single one anyway, there were several. A multitude of contributing factors all happening within a short space of time that truly derailed our season. We lost the leader and pillar of our defence with no one else able to step up and fill the void and hold the line when the pressure of poor form began to build. We lost numerous other personnel at centre-back to injury, so no consistent partnership could develop. There were no adequate options available in the transfer window to save us. Klopp suffered a tremendous personal bereavement which either affected him or the squad, or possibly both. Alisson also suffered a personal family loss, further contributing to the aura of defeatism and death death that must have been hanging around the dressing room. All these contributing factors certainly had an effect on the pitch. Liverpool this season topped the league when it came to errors leading to goals with 11 compared to second place Chelsea's 8, with Alisson contributing 3 of those errors, again a top place ranking for a player in the league. And most of those errors came between the 27th of December and the 7th of March, and also that fucking 7-2 defeat to Villa at the beginning, which I don't want to talk about again. I think I'm just going to think of that game as a bad dream from now on. I'm never thinking of it again.
It didn't happen!
The rut finally ended, however, with a 1-0 win against Wolves away, but the next 2 games were far more significant to get us up and running again. Beating Arsenal 3-0 on their own turf would usually be standard practice for, how can I put this politely, how laughably shite Arsenal are. Now, given that over the previous 3 months going into this game we weren't exactly ones for talking, but nonetheless beating a European Super League team who are so big they don't deserve to be relegated from Europe's Premier Division, despite not competing in Europe's Premier League for the tournament for 4 years and counting, and only 3 times in 11 years. It was nonetheless a much needed boost to confidence levels to beat them 3-0 away. This was followed up by our first win at home in nearly 4 months, which I'm not getting into because that was just an embarrassing coincidence as far as I'm concerned. But ending any run of poor form of any kind is always a good thing for confidence. Unfortunately, the next 2 games saw the old anxieties come back as Leeds and Newcastle respectively came at us looking to get their share of the spoils, and despite leading both games until the death, we lost out on 3 points both times to late equalisers. But this was to be the last time Liverpool dropped points for the remainder of the season, as the final month of the campaign saw Liverpool rack up maximum points from all 5 remaining games, with arguably the 2 positive highlight moments of our entire season happening during this victory sprint to the finish line. Now, usually when we play Man United, because of all the hype and the global interest, the occasion always seems to get to the players, and we end up with a cagey 0-0 or a 1-0. It's very rare that we get these 2 teams actually have a go and go toe-to-toe with one another. But with both teams having such a shit defence and both probably fearing what the other side's attacks could do to them, they had no choice but to take risks. I mean, it was hardly end-to-end for 90 minutes as the scoreline suggests, and the football was definitely below par for what these 2 teams are usually capable of. But there was definitely a lot more risk-taking and mistakes that were being exploited than the usual for this fixture. And for a change, we actually had an entertaining game. Remember when scoring 4 goals at Old Trafford used to be like the best day ever? Yeah, I remember that too. All us having an absolute party in Old Trafford while those lots streamed out to protest the Glazers, trash their own ground and generally give us stuff to laugh at them for. But no. Fucking COVID. And the next big game with the next big moment was only really a moment because we had to suffer 90 minutes of the most frustrating and boring football I have ever seen since the days of Roy Hodgson.
Fucking Jesus, mate! That's a bit uncalled for!
I mean, if you told me at any point during the second half against West Brom away that this game would probably be remembered as having one of the most memorable and batshit insane moments in your time as a Liverpool fan, I'd have told you to... Fuck off. Our attack that day was fucking shite. From the second, Salah scored his goal in the 3rd minute, right up until the final whistle. And with the baggy equalising and Liverpool needing a win to stay in the race for top 4, we needed a fucking miracle. And by God did we get a fucking miracle. You can't write this stuff. Alisson, fucking Alisson. I mean, he wasn't even picked up by the defenders because nobody in their right mind would think this lump would do anything more than cause chaos on the rebound. No, fuck no. I mean, he can't, can he? He doesn't train to be a footballer, he trains to be a goalkeeper. But no, he goes and scores a header that most strikers would be proud of, that almost makes me a born-again Christian in the process. 94th minute, a 94th minute winner by your goalkeeper. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. And this, during the season in which his dad died only a few weeks prior, I mean, you have to have the feels for the nature of this goal. I mean, when Alisson went to bed that night, he must have been somewhere between having the smuggest fucking grin on earth as if he bagged both of the hottest women on earth at once, or having a drink alone thinking about his dad. That's how mad this goal was. And I'd also have loved to have known the kind of banter he'd have had with the strikers in training that week. Fuck me, he must have tortured them. Another thing to mention was that it was during these last few games that it became clear Gini Wijnaldum was going to be leaving us at the end of the campaign, and I'd like to give a special mention to our fans for the class they showed in the send-off. I mean, usually when players leave us, especially during hard times, which we certainly had this season, it doesn't go down well when one wants to jump ship. I mean, you only have to remember the pitchforks and shirt burning that when Gerrard was thinking of leaving us that time. So it was genuinely a pleasant thing to see us show Gini some appreciation for his service, and really highlights the family feel we have at our great club. Look, I know that my channel's literally in its infancy at the time of posting, so the mere thought of the players watching my videos is laughable. But if there was even the slightest remote possibility here, I'd like to say thank you for your service, Gini, especially against the club you were thinking of joining at one point. And that was that for the season, really. That last run of wins was enough to galvanise us and finish in a respectable third place, which by early March looked almost impossible. But we rallied, and by the end of the season, I feel we reminded the rest of the league that we are still a team to fear. And don't forget, next season the fans will be back too, which will definitely help the team further. So in summary, Liverpool's start and end to the season was admirably good. Take that period between December 27th and March 7th out of the equation, and Liverpool won 17 out of the other 24 games, losing only once against Villa and scoring 57 times, averaging over 2 goals a game. For this segment, I'll go into how we did in the Cups and in Europe, but unfortunately there really isn't much to talk about on the topic. Liverpool were knocked out of the 4th round of both the League Cup and the FA Cup, and considering Jurgen Klopp has only reached one final in either of those tournaments, it's becoming a bit of a concern for me.
Forget about it. Forget about it.
Now look, being knocked out by Arsenal and Man United respectively isn't exactly humiliating. Well, maybe by Arsenal it is.
I'm going to kill you one day, Jurgen.
But what's concerning for me is that Man City are now level with us on League Cups. They said fucking European Cups there, Jesus Christ. We both now have 8 League Cups each, and if they get another one, we'll no longer have a domestic trophy record. This is not acceptable for Liverpool Football Club. This is one of the few criticisms I have of Jurgen Klopp. He doesn't respect the cup competitions. Now look, I know in the modern game they're practically pointless from a financial perspective, and Jurgen has hardly been quiet about his criticisms about fixture congestion, so I understand he's prioritising tournaments. But the fans do care about the cups. The FA Cup in particular holds a special place in the hearts of every English football fan. It's the oldest, the first ever professional sporting tournament on this planet. The final used to be the most watched sporting event in the world, and unlike us, Man City aren't just winning the league, they're winning the league and then some. They're winning doubles and trebles. Now look, I know that we don't have a squad the size of theirs, and I'll make another video about how we can realistically afford a larger squad, you know, by continuing to invest in infrastructure such as the stadium, improving our sponsorship deals so that we can at least be on a par with Man United, Barca and Madrid financially. Because look, I don't care if you're a rival fan, you're going to laugh at me for it. A club with the fan base the size of ours and the history in Europe that we do deserve it. And the only reason that we aren't is because unlike those other clubs, like, you know, your Bayern Munich, your Juventuses, your Barcelonas, we haven't capitalised on our history and our success the way that those clubs have, and built ourselves up off the pitch the way that they have. We're still playing catch up in the modern era, so to speak.
Well, we're waiting.
But I'll go more in depth on that another time. But for now, this cup situation, it needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. We need the financial capability to build a bigger squad so that we can't just prioritise the league in Europe. The cups matter too. Liverpool are a club who have ambitions to win everything. Our biggest rivals also love rubbing it in our faces that they've won the treble. We need to be having the ambition to go one further and win all 4 to beat them and be the first English club to win every tournament that they've competed in a season. I mean, I hope that this is the ambition of Jurgen and the lads, and that for now they're just doing what they can until the board can provide the funds to build a bigger squad so we can go and win more trophies. But for now, I'm really not happy about the fact that we're not prioritising the cups. But you can let me know down below whether you agree or whether you think I'm being a bit too harsh on Jurgen and the lads, because I genuinely would like to hear your thoughts on the matter. I mean, do Liverpool fans still think the cups are important, or do you think we've now moved on from them now in the modern era? Like I said, comment below. Moving on to Europe, and we had a fairly respectable run that ended in the quarterfinals, being eventually knocked out by Real Madrid, who beat us fair and square in Spain, and then played a sound but surprisingly tactical game at Anfield by simply keeping Liverpool from scoring, therefore ensuring they went through on aggregate. And I say surprising because Real Madrid, who you'll hear me mention many a time on this channel as time goes on, because I both admire and despise that club in equal measure, they are like the spoilt rich kids of European football for me. I've heard it said many a time that they'd rather lose 5-4 than win 1-0 because they demand entertainment. And if that's to be believed, then for them to come to Anfield and sit back happy to take the 0-0, that really came as a surprise to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was the right thing to do. It just surprised me because it was Real Madrid that did it. All in all, reaching the quarters is somewhat respectable, but considering we've been in 2 of the last 3 finals going into this season, I'd say realistic expectations was to at least reach the semis, but it wasn't to be. And as much as it hurt at the time, there's no shame in being knocked out by Real Madrid, nor by a manager who shares the record of European Cup wins by a certain other god. God rest that man's soul. One of many great managers this great club has had. Unlike some, we've only really had two. I'm just saying. Ultimately, we knew by the end of January this season ended up a write-off. Too many problems mounted, and it culminated in one of the worst runs of form in Liverpool's Premier League history, with 8 defeats in 14 games. But thankfully we rallied, and at the end of the season we finished strong and remained consistent at Champions League club under Jurgen Klopp, which will be crucial for signing players this summer, it must be noted. Finishing third though was a huge achievement given the amount of shit that we had to go through in that 14 game period. I hope most Liverpool fans don't get too disheartened by how tamely we submitted the title. I mean after all, we know what we are when everyone's fit and firing. Champions of England and champions of fucking Europe. We just had a massive injury crisis and a massive run of just pure bad luck. Anyone would go through shit under those circumstances. Not much to say about our Champions League campaign, as we had a fairly respectable run and were knocked out at a late stage by one of the other giants, which is what you expect if you don't win it. I mean, I'd have preferred to have at least reached the semis, but ultimately, given the season that we've had, finishing third and reaching the quarterfinals of the Champions League and still feeling like we've had a nightmare season just shows how far we've come as a football club under Jurgen Klopp. I mean, for what it's worth, that is encouraging. However, that being said, I am beginning to get a bit concerned about how little we're caring about the cup competitions, and hope this is an issue we address in the coming seasons. Hopefully we learn from this season and address the issues that this season has highlighted. I'll leave the speculation on new signings and where we go from here in one of the next videos, so if you like the video, make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you can catch it. As you can see, I am a new channel at this point, so every subscriber, every like, every view, it's not just appreciated but very much needed. And you never know, could earn you a special mention later down the line if I end up big and famous. Cheers lads and lasses, catch you later.